I graduated with an accounting degree, didn't know what I wanted to do, and wound up working for the Board of Trade as an auditor. I was a regulatory auditor, so we went to the various firms, made sure they were complying with the rules and regs and had the right capital computations. I then went to work for a member firm of the Board of Trade, and this is back in the early 80s when the markets were really just taking off. We were a small firm at the Board of Trade, then we moved over to the Merck where I met my good friend Gil. I opened up an office in London. And during that time I ran operations, I ran risk, I ran business development, and I used to always talk to the traders about why it was they were breaking their limits or why it was that they were having struggles. And then one day I decided I'd go on the floor as well. So for about 6 months I traded, and what I realized was I was making all the same mistakes trading that I was yelling at all these people about for them doing what they were doing in their trading. So it was a really good empathetic situation for me because you realize it's a lot harder to do something than to tell somebody else how to do something. And that was something that I took away as I went through my career, to be a little bit more understanding of other people's point of view. So I worked there quite a while, about 17 years, did a quick stint in Bermuda, came back and worked for the Board of Trade, and I ran all electronic trading when it was transitioning from the floor to the electronic markets. And it was with 4 CEOs in 2 years. It was a very tumultuous time. I was hated by the people who I used to trade with because in their mind I was the face that was getting rid of the floor. People would spit at me, threaten me. It was really awful. But you learn a little tenacity and you get a little bit of a spine and you realize that you have a job to do. And if you take the tough jobs, you always learn something from it. And then I moved on and I was CEO of a proprietary trading company for about 8 years. We had offices in Ireland, Gibraltar, Hong Kong. And this was when trading went from being sort of the human point-and-click trading to the more algorithmic, much more technologically savvy trading. I had no technology background, but you learn it because you're put in that position. So after having a little accounting degree, I wound up having good expertise in risk management, operations, business development, international issues. And as long as you take the tough jobs and always are open to new experiences, you'll have an opportunity to go in areas you never thought you would ever have any interest in going into. So with that, I retired from trading, my trading company, about 5 years ago because my kids were going to high school. And I decided I wanted to do some consulting or do something a little less frenetic. And I went into consulting. And lo and behold, the world of Dodd-Frank found me. I assume you all know what the Dodd-Frank law is. It came in after the financial crisis of 2008, and it's 800 pages with 400 rulemaking requirements, and it's really turned the entire industry on its head in terms of all the requirements one needs now to be able to do business. So I kind of stole this from Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, but this is, as in 2012, all the various agencies and who has jurisdiction or some ability to order around all the different entities. It's just overwhelming. I mean, people just don't know what to do. And then the Europeans thought, well, we'll join the party. So now the EU has all of their regulators. So we have all of ours, all of theirs, and on top of it now, there's not a lot of fondness between the US and the European regulators as to if we have comparable regulatory schemes so that their players can be in our sandbox and our players can be in their sandbox. So what's wound up happening is a lot of participants in the markets have left. Some of the bank traders have left because the banks won't allow them to trade anymore. A lot of other participants have left because the obstacles are just too great. The regulatory burden is huge, the cost of capital is incredibly high, and the return on equity is just not there to make sense to a lot of people. However, as in all of these situations, whenever there's things that are changing, there's always opportunities to take advantage of them. And if you can learn what are the main rules one needs to do to sort of navigate this regulatory scheme, you can find opportunities that other people have just walked away from because they don't want to deal with it. And you can do it legally, which is really critical. And there's basically 3 things that I would say is really important. People need to have actual policies of what they're going to do. Then you have to train your people as to how you're going to do it. You have to have a culture of compliance at the top level of an organization that says, we really believe in this. And then you have to go around and you have to test that people are doing what they say they're going to do. And it sounds really simple and it sounds really basic, but it doesn't happen a lot. And probably the most important thing that I really want to share with the group as a whole is, in this industry, in my opinion, the most important thing is you have to have your own moral compass. If you look at any of the disasters or any of the rogue traders or things that blew up over the last 10 years, it's always been two things have happened. One, there's been no checks and balances within the organization. And most of that is because there's always the big trader or the main revenue generator that can live by a different rule than everybody else. And everyone is afraid to say, no, you can't do it that way because they don't want to lose their job, or they don't want to be fired, or they don't want to lose the client. And so when that happens, people don't start following the rules, and the next thing you know, you're in too deep and it's all over. If you see something that's not going right, put up your hand. And that is really the most important thing I can ever say to you. The other thing I would say is, one last thing. I was a woman in this industry when there were like no women. And I felt that I needed to show everybody that I was as good, if not smarter. And I was really a bitch. I felt that I could only show that I was really competent by showing that I was better than everybody else. And it was a really bad behavior that if I could tell anybody not to do it, don't do it. You know, you can just do your job and be smart and work hard and take hard assignments. But people in this industry we've all known each other forever. You're always going to work with somebody again. You don't want to burn a bridge, and you don't want to be mean to people. It's really important to try to make sure that as you're going down your career path, that you keep your ethical sounding board, and you do what you need to do, but you really try not to be mean about it, quite frankly, and try not to show that you're so smart because you're going to make other people look not so smart. So those are my pearls of wisdom, and thank you very much.